Okay, so welcome everyone to Worcester Public Library's virtual cooking class, More Fresh Whole Food Soups with Colin McCullough. Since Colin went vegan in 1995, he has been finding new ways to make healthy eating convenient and delicious, especially while raising two boys with healthy appetites. Colin teaches private and public cooking classes throughout New England, sharing his experience and recipes with people who want to incorporate more whole food, plant-based meals for health, compassion, and the environment. He has published 2 books, The Healthy Vegan Cookbook and Smoothies That Taste Like Girl Scout Cookies. You can learn more about Colin on his website and Facebook. The links are in the handout that you received in the registration. And just to let you know, this project has been funded in whole or in part with federal funds through the National Library of Medicine, National Institutes of Health with the University of Massachusetts, Worcester. Okay, Colin, you can take it away.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Dot, as always. If you have been to any of my online classes before, then you can see that this is a different space. I just bought a house, so not tiny, cramped into a tiny little kitchen like I was before. So hopefully this makes things a little bit easier to be able to see everything that I'm doing. And also there's the river behind me, so you know, you can just look at that. Tired of looking at me and talking and everything. So all right, so you know, like Dot said, I have 2 boys who are now 18 and 21, and you know, trying to eat healthy myself as a vegan for a long time, it's one thing, but you know, trying to get my kids to eat healthy, it's something else entirely. So you know, anytime that I could develop recipes that you know, that they would ask for seconds, you know, but was also really healthy, you know, those were always wins for me. So I kind of put together the collection of the recipes. The Healthy Vegan Cookbook is that, and these recipes that we're going to do today are from that cookbook. Both of the cookbooks are available on Amazon. Just to make my publisher happy, I got to mention that. So it's book. The print book and the ebook edition are both on Amazon, so you can find it there. So I've been vegan for 25 years. You know, kind of the approach that I take, if you've been to my classes, you know the approach that I take is you know, trying to use healthy whole food ingredients as much as possible. You know, I have a number of friends who you know, like to eat healthy just like me, but you know, they'll put a bunch of stuff in a blender and you know, like the kale and everything, and have a green smoothie in the morning, and you know, it tastes terrible. You know, they'll offer it to me, and oh, it tastes terrible. So you know, one thing I always say in my classes is you should never have to hold your nose and plug your nose and drink something or eat something, you know, just to try and be healthy. There are so many delicious, healthy recipes out there, you know, that just taste fantastic. You know, you should never have to plug your nose to eat something. You know, my thing when when I was a kid, my mom, I swear she made lima beans all the time, and no amount of butter and salt makes lima beans taste good. They're disgusting. So, you know, trying to get my kids to eat healthy and not torture them like my mom tortured me with lima beans. I'm pretty sure my mom isn't watching right now, so I can get away with saying that. So these 3 recipes we're going to do today. I have done, I do a healthy soups class. I've done that in Worcester already. So this is sort of like the sequel to that. So we're taking 3 more soups from the Healthy Vegan Cookbook, and we're gonna make those for you today. So smells fantastic in my kitchen. The next recipe we're gonna do after this is roasted roots soup, and so I've been roasting the vegetables for the last hour, and the house smells fantastic. It's so great. So unfortunately, I can't share that with you. You guys can't tell that, so I'm just gonna say it, that it smells fantastic. All right, so first recipe we're gonna do is going to be African peanut soup. So I am going to be using a blender for all 3 of these, just to kind of blend it and make it creamy. I have a Vitamix, and that's a high power blender. You know, they are definitely on the expensive side if you were to buy one new. You know, this, out of all of the appliances that I have for my kitchen, this is the one thing that I use every day. You know, if for whatever reason this broke, I would buy another one. I would go to the store right now and buy another one. But they last a really long time. I have a few of them, and the first one that I got is over 20 years old and still running. So you don't need a really powerful blender to be able to do these recipes. It's just, you know, the consistency is going to be nice and creamy with that. You could also use you know, like a NutriBullet or a Ninja or something like that. Or if you have an immersion blender, then you can use that as well. We just have to kind of modify how we're doing things here. So this first recipe, African peanut soup, I'm going to add 3 cups of water into the blender here. Right, and then the next ingredient is going to be, I call for 1 ripe plantain. So you probably know plantains are very similar to bananas. You know, usually if you are in a supermarket, you might find the plantains in the produce section with other Hispanic foods usually. So if you ever go past these bananas that look like almost kind of black and are like bigger than a banana, plantains are great. They have a consistency that's a little bit different from a banana. It's more of a starchy kind of fruit, so it's not quite the same, but you can use banana as a substitute. Actually, I went to the store earlier, and my local grocery store, I live up near Augusta, Maine, and they didn't have plantains today, so I'm just using banana. So you really can substitute, that's okay. So I'm gonna put in, this for me is gonna be, I put in 1.5 of a ripe banana. A plantain is, like I said, it's a little bit bigger than a regular banana. So if you're gonna substitute regular banana, you might wanna use 1.5 or 2, all right? Also, bananas help to make things nice and creamy as well. It really helps the consistency. So I'm gonna put in, next is just rough chopped a yellow onion here. So I'm gonna put that in. You know, one thing I like to joke is that I consider myself to be a very lazy cook. So, you know, if I can have the appliances do all the work for me, then, you know, I don't want to, you know, be done with work and then have to sit there and chop vegetables for the next 45 minutes to make my dinner. I like to just rough chop things, put it in the blender, and then the blender is going to do all the work. So this is a great example of that. There's also going to be a 1 orange or yellow bell pepper. So I just kind of rough chop that up, put that in, and 3 cloves of garlic here. So I had some large and small cloves, so I just kind of threw them all in here. So there's the garlic, 2 medium tomatoes here. So, you know, a lot of soup recipes, especially when it comes to tomatoes, they would call for, like, if you were making fresh tomato soup and you followed a traditional, you know, conventional recipe for that, they're going to tell you to take all the seeds out. They're going to tell you to, you know, take the skins off. So much work to do that with a tomato. You can put it in a blender, you know, especially a powerful blender like a Vitamix is just going to blend the seeds up. It's going to blend the skins and everything. So, you know, it's just going to blend it to the point where, you know, you just don't, it's not going to make it gritty. So I rough chopped the tomatoes. I'll put that in there. The tomatoes also add more liquid to it. All right, so I'm also going to add, this is, let's see, I want to make sure I put everything in at the right, in my own recipe, you'd think I know it, but this is going to be 1 large sweet potato. It helps with this one if you just cube it and throw it in some water for about 10 minutes and just cook it that way rather than putting it in a Vitamix raw here. So you can see I'm kind of running out of room, so I'm going to go ahead and run this just for a minute. Benefit of doing this in a class here online is that you can mute it, you can turn it down because the blender is kind of loud. Benefit of the loud blender like the Vitamix is it worked great as an alarm clock for my kids when they were younger. make a smoothie in the morning and let this thing run just for a minute, and all of a sudden they'd be awake and roaming around. So I'm gonna go ahead and run this just for a minute here. All right, ooh, getting up to the top there. So what I'm gonna do is I'll just pour a little bit into the saucepan, and then I'm gonna blend it a little bit more here, just so that I have enough room. Also, I wanted to add, there's some chopped ginger here that's fresh, so I'll throw that in as well. So the next ingredient that I'm going to add is coconut manna, and I'll show you that in just a minute. Coconut manna is solid at room temperature, so it helps if you have a microwave, just throw it in the microwave for a minute. That just kind of softens it up. Coconut manna, it's different from coconut oil or so much of the different coconut products. Coconut itself is really super healthy. It's very, very healthy. It does have, a fair amount of saturated fat in it. But it's actually a very, very healthy food that, if you press the coconut and you extract the oil from it and you pull all the fiber out, then you have the coconut oil. And, for a couple of years, that was kind of the darling of the health industry, health food industry. But, as people found that it was really increasing their fat quite a bit. It actually even increases people's cholesterol as well. So, it kind of fell out of favor, but I like to use coconut manna. So from a whole foods perspective, coconut manna is just pureed coconut. So, all the fiber is still there. All the nutrients are still in there. I'm actually going to pull this out of the microwave here. Go. So this is the brand that I get. This is the Nativa coconut manna. So I don't really use any coconut oil in the food, in the recipes that I make, but coconut manna I do like to use sometimes. It's a great source of fat. Like I said, it also gives it a really nice taste as well. So this was really more of a specialty food kind of product. This is something that I usually just get it at Whole Foods. It's easier to find there. A lot of regular supermarkets don't have coconut manna. You can also order it easily online on Amazon. You can get it. Also, I would find this sometimes at Ocean State Job Lot. Strangely enough, I don't know why, but so basically, I'm just going to put in about a half a cup here, just a couple of spoonfuls here. And like I said, that's going to really make it extra creamy. And this is not an essential ingredient. If you don't have this and you don't want to get it, then it's definitely not essential, but it really does add a delicious flavor to it. All right, so there's that. Just a few other things here. I'm going to add a tablespoon of Better Than bouillon. So there are a lot of different bouillon types out there. There's the cubes. There's the liquid bouillon that you can buy that's in the carton. I like to use this brand, the Better Than bouillon. This really gives it a nice taste. I really like the flavor of it. So this comes in a sort of a paste form here. So that you put this in your refrigerator when you're done with it. And there are a number of different flavors, definitely many of them not vegan or vegetarian, but this is the no chicken base. So it's a vegan version of the chicken bouillon flavor. So I'm going to put in about a tablespoon of the bouillon. And again, this is not definitely not required. It's just I really like the taste of what this adds to it. So just going to add a little bit in there. And then the last ingredient I'm going to put in here is Burberry spice mix. So in the cookbook, I have the recipe for how to make Burberry. If you can't find that in your regular supermarket, Burberry is an African spice mix. It's really hot, so a little bit goes a long way. I call for a tablespoon, so I'm being pretty adventurous for my spice level, but I'll go ahead and put that in. Let me just get the tablespoon here so that I don't put too much in. All right. And this Burberry spice mix, if you wanted to buy it, certainly online, it's easy enough. It's got a lot of chili powder in it, so it's nice and hot. You can also find this. This is the Whole Foods Burberry spice brand or spice mix. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and blend this together a little bit more here. So I don't want to take forever here, and if I wasn't doing this for a class, I probably would blend it a little bit longer. Certainly, if you don't have a Vitamix and you have like the NutriBullet or the Ninja or something like that, then you definitely want to run it for several minutes. Really let that blend for quite a while before. So let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and add that into the saucepan here. And for the purposes of the class for today, I am not going to actually cook these soups. I'll just wait until after the class to do that. You all don't need to see me actually cook it. So I'll just kind of put this aside here, and I will cook that up later. Just one thing I wanted to add for the recipe, the rest of the ingredients. So basically you're going to cook this in a large saucepan for about 15 minutes on medium heat with a cover. And then after 15 minutes, you would want to stir in about a cup of peanut butter into that. And then there's the salt as well, 1 teaspoon of sea salt. You would mix that in and then cook it for another 10 minutes on medium heat. And then when that's all done, you can put it in a bowl and serve it with some chopped cilantro and also some chopped roasted peanuts as well. It tastes so good that way. One thing I did want to mention here, this is the type of salt that I like to use. That's what I prefer, Redmond real salt. So, you can use whatever salt you have, but this is what I like to use. It's technically sea salt, but it's from a seabed out in the Midwest. This actually has the highest nutrient content of any salt on the market. I'm not paid by them to say that. It's just this is what I like to use. So this is more of a specialty type of product. You might not be able to find this in your regular supermarket. I just found it at mine. I didn't even know that they had it, but definitely Whole Foods would have this. And also if you were going to order this online on Amazon, this is pretty easy to find as well. So that's the salt that I like to use. So I'm gonna go ahead and rinse this out and then move on to the next thing here.
Can I take a break, see if anyone has questions?
Yep. Any questions or comments so far, then go ahead and jump in. This is a good time.
Yeah, if folks want to mute themselves or post a question in the chat, they can do it that way. I had a question. If you're going to use an immersion blender, is it best to heat up the ingredients like in the pot first?
Yes.
I just made a vegetable soup, a harvest vegetable soup. So it was like squash and peppers. And so it called for heating it up first, adding broth to it and heating it up. And then I used the immersion blender. So I was just wondering, yeah. Okay.
Yep, that's definitely what I would do. Just chop everything, put it in with the water and cook it for maybe 15 minutes. And then at that point, use the immersion blender and just kind of mix everything in and then just probably cook it for maybe another 15 or 20 minutes or so once it's already been blended, and just cook it further.
Okay.
Right.
And I've used that better than bouillon before, but I can't remember. Is it salty? Like bouillon?
Yes.
Oh, it
Yep.
is. Okay. But you still add the other salt as well.
Yeah. What I like to do is I definitely go with the salt, and then if you're going to cut something out, then probably cut the bouillon out, and then keep the salt because the salt is going to have a high nutrient content to it. The bouillon is kind of salty, but it's really more for flavor. So you could just you could really play with both and see what you prefer.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions, so I guess you can move on.
Okay, very good. All right, so the next the next recipe we're going to do is unconventional black bean soup. So I kind of followed traditional recipes, but we're using whole food healthy ingredients here, and also not using any meat in this. A lot of times the traditional recipes are going to call for some smoked meat, so we're going to find some different ways around that we'll go over. All right, so the first recipe we're going to put in is 2 cups of water here. All right, and then so I have 2 carrots that are roughly chopped, and then also you see 3 ribs of celery as well that have been roughly chopped. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in the blender, and I am going to put in 1 cup of the cooked black beans into the blender and blend that into the base of the soup. So so you're going to have the delicious flavor of the black beans, but then I'm going to put in there's 3 cups of black beans total, which if you're using canned black beans, that's usually 2 cans. Usually a can is 1.5 cups. So I just put in 1 of the 3 and blend it in with the water. That's really going to make the base of it, and then the other 2 I'm going to put in later and cook it, and then it's just going to you'll have the whole black beans in there as well. So I'll put about a cup of black beans here. All right. If you have a electric pressure cooker, I really like to just cook the black beans that way. You can throw some spices in there while it's cooking in a bay leaf, and they absorb the flavor of that. It's great. Or you can just do it on the stove. It just takes longer. Cooking beans is, if you buy beans that are dried, they're super cheap. They're really affordable that way, versus buying them in the can. Also, I generally don't like to buy a lot of stuff in the can because it's got preservatives and stuff in it. And, I try to make it fresh as much as I can. Things like beans, they take, you have to decide the night before that you're going to make it. So, it takes a little more planning ahead of time. And, my brain's just not always thinking about what I'm going to make for dinner the next day. So, there certainly is a convenience to having the canned beans as well. So I'm going to go ahead and blend this as it is here just for a minute, and then we'll move on to the rest of it. One thing I forgot to add is there's also, this is where you would add the yellow onion as well. Right. So I like to have it just blended in, but you can chop it up, really fine and put it in the soup, whichever way you want to do it. But this last week has been really perfect soup weather. It's been so cold out and kind of dreary, so I've been having soup all week, really. And these soups do freeze very well, so you can certainly put them in the. I like to put them in the quart mason jars. These mason jars do have a fill line on it, so you'd want to go up to about that far and not fill it any farther, because when it freezes, it's going to expand and you're going to break the nice glass here. So, soup, like something like this, it's really the perfect kind of convenient food. If you want to double the recipe, it does take a little while to put together. So if you want to double the recipe and then, enjoy half of the recipe and then, save the rest, freeze the rest in the mason jars. Especially if you were to put it in, say like a pint, this is really, for me, it's a great serving. So, I'll take something like this, bring it to work and heat this up in the microwave, and it'll just be a meal in a jar. So very convenient that way. All right, so we have the blended ingredients. Now we're going to add everything else to that. Let's see, we're going to add the 2 cups of the black beans here. I'll put the rest of that in. And the next one we're going to do is sofrito. So this is sofrito is used a lot in Hispanic cooking. It's really kind of a combination of different herbs and spices and different vegetables, really. So this is sort of like a Hispanic version of bouillon to an extent. So by itself, sofrito doesn't really have a very strong flavor. It smells delicious when you make it. I do have the recipe in the cookbook on how to make sofrito if you wanted to. It does freeze very easily. So what I like to do is I'll make it and then pour it into a silicone ice cube tray, and that's going to freeze it into cubes, and then I put it in a Ziploc bag. Just keep it in the freezer. Also, Goya, in your regular supermarket, you can probably find it in the frozen section. Goya makes a sofrito that's like in a white plastic tub. So if in your frozen section at the supermarket, if you find different Hispanic foods, then should be in there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add that. That's going to give it a delicious flavor. So instead of adding bouillon, then that's what I'm going to put in here. Sofrito, some of the ingredients might be a little bit hard to find in, just your regular supermarket. There's a cousin of cilantro called culantro, and so that's one of the ingredients in sofrito that makes it taste so good. And that one, you might have to search it out. If you really wanted to make it, you might have to kind of search around to see where you can find something like that. Really large grocery stores would probably have something like that, but you gotta look for it, or you can just order it online. So next ingredient we're going to put in, this is liquid smoke. So this is an ingredient that I like to use. It's basically water that's been infused with some smoke, so it's got a nice smoky flavor. And so I'm just going to add a dash of that, like a half a teaspoon of that. There we go. You probably have this at your regular supermarket. I just searched again today and I found it. If you look in the condiment section, then it's going to be where like the hot sauces are and everything, and like the steak sauces and all that stuff. It's going to be in probably in a box, and it will say liquid smoke, like hickory liquid smoke. So I just put it in a jar because I had the bottle and I broke the bottle by accident, so I just keep it in a little jar. And then there are a couple of spices here. There's ground cumin, 2 teaspoons, and then 2 teaspoons of oregano as well. So I mix those together. I'll put that in here. Also, there's 1 jalapeno diced and seeded. So the seeds are where most of the heat is for these. So if you remove that, then it's not going to be quite as hot. So I'm just going to use a spoon for that because I don't want to. I'm just going to touch the peppers and then touch my eyes, and then I'm going to be hurting. In here. And then I'm going to put in 1 teaspoon of the Redmond real salt, and I'll just grab a teaspoon real quick to do that. There we go. Right. And just like the other soup, I am going to put that aside, and I will cook that. So for this one, I cook it for, let's see, what did I say in my own recipe here? Let's see, I'll bring it to a simmer, and then I add the juice of half a lime here, which I have. And then there's handful of chopped cilantro here as well. So I'm going to bring it to a simmer. I'll add that. And then at that point, you know, you probably want to cook it for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. You're really just kind of cooking off the onion that's in it and the carrots and the celery, which are going to cook really fast if they've been blended up already. So I'm just going to move this over here, and I will cook that up when the class is over here, and then I will get the next recipe ready. So, oh, that's the wrong one. There we go. All right. So that is the unconventional black bean soup. And then this last one we're going to do is the roasted roots soup. So
I'll
just
just interrupt for a quick second. If anybody has questions on the black bean soup, they can post them in the chat or unmute yourself.
I actually recently ran out of the sofrito that I had made, and I didn't have time to make it, so I bought, this is what I was talking about here. There's the Goya sofrito. So this is pretty good. You know, you can definitely use this as a substitute for making it yourself. If you make it yourself, it's one of those things that, you know, using those fresh vegetables and all the herbs and everything, it's going to smell so amazing in your house. It's going to smell so great. And it tastes so much better. You know, that the frozen Goya stuff is pretty good, but you know, nothing beats fresh. It's really so good. Right. So next recipe we're going to do is roasted root soup. So most of the work for this class I already did ahead of time because you guys don't need to watch me roast vegetables. So I'll just kind of walk through the process of what I did. So I have I used the sheet pan, and then also, let's see, this is what I like to use. This is a silicone. I know it looks dirty and brown. I have used it quite a bit. This is a silicone baking mat called a Silpat, and I like to use that. It really reduces the amount of oil that you have to use because it makes any pan non-stick. And so for this recipe, I use 6 large carrots. I use 2 parsnips, and those 2 vegetables together, the carrots and the parsnips, you know, they magically transform when you roast them. There's a lot of sugar, natural sugar in carrots and in parsnips. You know, they're kind of sweet when you eat them, but if you roast them, 450 degrees. You slice them in half so they're open from the inside, and you roast them. Then it just releases it, like all the natural sugars that are in those carrots and the parsnips, you know, starts to caramelize, and oh, the taste is fantastic. It just magically transforms the taste of these 2 vegetables that, you know, by themselves you might say, you know, carrots are kind of boring or parsnips boring, but if you roast them, it is so good. So 6 large carrots, 2 large parsnips. I also used 1 medium red onion as well because I love my onions. I also used 1 thumb-sized piece of ginger and also 4 cloves of garlic. So you know, if you've ever had roasted garlic before, you know, just like the carrots and the parsnips, you know, roasting gives it a whole different dimensional kind of flavor. It's so good. So what I did ahead of time was I preheated the oven to 450 degrees, and on the baking sheet with that silicone mat that I showed you, I cut the carrots in half, the parsnips in half, and just laid them all out. Also, the onion, I cut it in half and then put it face down on the mat, and then I use just an oil cooking spray like I have here. It really just uses a little bit of oil, and so basically I'm just kind of spritzing that on. That really helps on the roasting process. You don't have to use that. You can roast it without oil. I know some people are whole food plant-based and they don't use any oil, salt, or sugar. So you don't have to use the oil, but it does kind of help the veggies get a little bit extra crispy. So so then I have those three veggies, and I cook those at 450 for about 15 minutes, and then then I took those out and then mixed them up, turned them over, and then also I added 4 cloves of garlic and also 1 thumb-sized piece of ginger, so like 1 or 2 inches of ginger root, and I put those in foil, wrap them up in foil, and then put that on the baking sheet, put it back in for another 20 minutes. So, really superheating these vegetables. You really have to do that in order to, bring the sugars out and caramelize those. And then also, in that foil packet, you have the ginger and the garlic. I know it's a little different from the recipe, but I like to put the ginger in the foil pack with the garlic and just kind of let those roast for about 20 minutes, and so good that way. All right, so I have all of those vegetables here. These are already roasted. You can see they're nice and brown from the sugars in them. And so what I will do is I will put those in the blender here. There's 2 cups of water here, and I'm going to add half a cup of raw cashews to this. So the reason I'm doing that is this is supposed to be a really creamy soup, and to really get that kind of texture, instead of using oil, I really like to use some nuts and blend those in. That's really going to blend the fat from the cashews in. In my cooking and also in the Healthy Vegan Cookbook, I really very rarely use oil. Like I might use the spritzer oil just a little bit, just to get the veggies extra crispy, but I don't really like to use things like, even olive oil. It's just 100% pure liquid fat. And there's a ton of calories in it, but you're not really getting any nutritional benefit for all of those calories. And so also, I don't really believe that, for most people, I don't believe that your body really knows what to do with oil, because it's such a processed product. It stores it. I like to be able to use cashews. If you're not allergic to nuts, something like cashews, like your body knows what to do with cashews. Easy. It can deal with that. So I'm going to use that as my source of fat instead of oil. So what I'll do is I'll blend that just for a minute, those two, and let me get this off real quick here. And then once I blend those together, then I will add those roasted veggies in there as well. So. In a powerful blender like a Vitamix, you don't have to pre-soak the nuts. Cashews are pretty soft, so they'll blend right in. But I did want to blend the water and the cashews together first for a minute, just to blend that a bit, and then I will add all of the roasted veggies into that. So I'll put that in here. If you really prefer to have this soup be a textured soup, rather than a pureed soup, then I would add these to a food processor and just kind of blitz them just for just for a little bit, just to kind of break it up, and then you can put it in the soup that way. But this I prefer it to be a pureed soup, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So let's see. I will blend this up now. All right, it's pretty thick, so I'm just gonna shake it and yeah, ultimately there are 6 cups of water in this. So because it is so thick, I think I'm gonna add another cup or 2 of water into the blender just to really get it nice and smooth here. So let's see, 2 cups of water. There we go. Gotta shake it up a little bit. So I am going to add this into the saucepan here. It smells fantastic. And so I've used 4 cups of the 6 cups of water so far. So I'm just going to put in another 2 cups of water into the saucepan. So I have the 6. And to that, I am going to mix 2 tablespoons of the better than bouillon. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. I like that flavor in here as well. All right, and this one, because I'm using the 2 tablespoons of the bouillon, I'm not really using any salt in this one. Again, you can kind of play with the different flavors if you want, but all right, so there's the soup for the third one. And let's see. So at this point, I just want to stop and see, does anybody have any questions or comments or anything like that? I don't believe that, yeah, this recipe didn't really use any specialty ingredients. So anybody have any questions or anything they want to throw in yet?
Feel free to mute yourselves or put a question in the chat. I don't see anything so far.
Okay. Oh, somebody's got their hand up.
Oh, yep. Who is it? Let's see.
Isabel?
Yes,
Go ahead.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I'd like to know what the difference is in making all these soups. Instead of doing what they call the odori or the perfumes, like the onion, garlic and all that, frying those as the base, doing
Frying them?
frying them in oil or lard or butter, and frying them and then adding the water. Noticed that a lot of the soups I used to make, or I do make, do that. What you call the refrito. You do it first and then you add your water. You know, what is the merit or difference? Is it caloric, nutritional? You see what I'm trying to say? I've always thought that soups were not blended and then cooked, but you cook them little by little, starting with the perfume, with the aromatics.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, as a vegan, I definitely don't use butter or lard, and you know, in the recipes that I do, I really try to limit the amount of oil that I use. So it's sort of you know, like in the roasted root soup, you know, I suppose it's kind of a similar kind of thing where, you know, instead of frying it, you're roasting it with that a little spritz of oil, and that's caramelizing the sugars in the recipe. So it's going to sort of achieve the same thing in a way that, you know, just cooking it in a pot on the stove, just blending it and putting it in a pot on the stove isn't going to give you that same kind of flavor. So, you know, there are recipes like the roasted root soup where I would say, you know, if you were just going to cook the vegetables and put it in the pot and blend it together, then it's definitely not going to have the same flavor. So, you know, I guess it just depends on the different recipes that you're using and how you're trying to cook the vegetables. So like in one of the other recipes that I had, like the unconventional black bean soup, uh, I'm not trying to caramelize the sugar in the carrots or anything. I'm not really going for that taste, so I don't need to roast them or fry them ahead of time. I just blend it in and then cook them. So also, one thing that I like to do is, if you really don't want to use bouillon, then using carrots and celery and onions, things like that. If you look at the ingredients that is in a lot of bouillon, a lot of different types of bouillon, those are really the main ingredients. So, if you wanted to just blend it in so that you have a whole food soup and you're not using any bouillon at all, then you can certainly do that. Cook it with a bay leaf in it as well. You're going to get the same kind of flavor, but if you didn't want to use bouillon, then you can achieve the same thing with from a whole foods perspective. All right. So
Thank you.
Yep. All right. So I think that's going to be about it. These ended up being kind of 3 quick recipes. I said, I was saying before we started the class to my wife, most of the work in making the roasted root soup is roasting the veggies ahead of time. So, it almost seems kind of like cheating to use this as a recipe in the class because I've already done the work and you don't need to see me do that. So, just kind of talk about it instead. But most of the time up until recently, up until March, I did most of the cooking classes live in person in classes, and I would bring my kitchen to everybody, bring all my appliances and everything. And so I would be able to make it in the class and then be able to give samples to everybody at the end so you can all taste how delicious these different soups are. But unfortunately, we do the classes online. I can't share it with you. I wish that I could. I always love, it's one of my favorite parts of teaching classes is to be able to, give samples to people. They see how it's made and they taste how delicious it is. And like I said, in the beginning, it's not like you have to plug your nose and eat something healthy, but, so that you can't taste it. So, I love to be able to share recipes with people for healthy whole food ingredients.
Hopefully we can get back to that soon. We really do miss that. I think there is a question in the chat. Let me just see.
What is the thumb of ginger quantity?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's about an inch or 2 of ginger, depending on how big the ginger root is. So I'd say anywhere from an inch to 2 inches. Also, it depends on how strong you want the ginger flavor to be. If you like ginger and you want it to be strong, then I'd say go with 2-inch piece of ginger. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. And I just want to point out, everybody, there's some links in the chat for the online survey. If you could all fill it out, that would be great. We'd be grateful for any feedback. We'd like to hear from you. There's a link for some our healthy cooking and nutrition resources blog and our healthy living classes, nutrition, cooking, diabetes, and we just added meditation. And so the next class you have, Colin, is the smoothies class, February 27th. You want to talk a little bit about that real quick, or?
Smoothies that taste like Girl Scout cookies, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, yep, that is actually I came out with this book several months ago. So this is also available on Amazon as well. Smoothies that taste like Girl Scout cookies. So I took all 10 of the Girl Scout cookie flavors and basically broke them down into the essential taste and used whole food healthy ingredients to be able to make a smoothie that tastes like a Girl Scout cookie. So it's some crazy alchemy to be able to do this, but when I was writing a healthy vegan cookbook, that was definitely one of the focuses was using healthy whole food ingredients to make smoothies for breakfast in the morning. And so there are 30 different smoothie recipes in the Healthy Vegan Cookbook. And so, as I was writing that, I had one of the recipes that I made was the peanut butter cookie smoothie, which tastes great, just as it is. But, as I was writing it, I thought, I wonder if I could, kind of push it a little bit further and get it to taste just like the Do-si-do, the peanut butter, sorry, the Girl Scout peanut butter cookie. And so I was able to get it really close. I mean, it tastes like blended Girl Scout cookies. So, once I was done the Healthy Vegan Cookbook, then that was kind of a fun little side project to try and recreate all 10 of those recipes using different fruits and vegetables and nuts um, and to really be able to capture those flavors. So in the class that we're going to do coming up, I'll do 3 of the Girl Scout cookie smoothie recipes, and you get to see what I did. All right.
Oh, sounds good. Thank you. We do have 2 questions. Diane wants to know a little bit more about your background, and then Sharon has a specific question. Once you freeze the soup in mason jars, can you reheat it in the microwave without the cover?
Yes. Yep. You don't want to heat it on the stove because then that's going to crack it. If you put it like in a saucepan with water. But if you just have the pint jar and you put that in the microwave without the cover, then that'll be fine. All right. And then
a little bit about your background.
yeah, okay. Let's see, for background. So like I said, I've been vegan for 25 years. Really a huge impetus on the way that I cook was, when my kids came along and, trying to cook for them. There were definitely times when, I would come home from work and, would just have to, kind of look in the pantry and see, okay, I have, this random like can of beans. I have, this grain that I'm not even sure what I do with. And, I have like some vegetables in the freezer or in the refrigerator that I'm not sure what to do with, like zucchini, like, how many things can you make with zucchini? And, so what I found was, having the right sauce really made all the difference for that. So, I really started to develop different sauce recipes and, a lot of smoothie recipes as well. And actually, I went on a vegan cruise about 6 years ago now. I've been a couple of times now, but they had a lot of different cooking classes on the cruise that showed, how to do different, vegan dishes. And I realized that, there's a lot of vegan advocacy out there. A lot of people, doing demonstrations and doing things online. But really what I found in talking to people that I know, people would say, okay, but what do I eat though? I want to know, like, how do you be vegan or how do you be vegetarian in a healthy way and not just eat junk food all the time? Because there's plenty of vegetarian junk food out there. So I was really inspired from going on the cruise, the Holisticology at Sea cruise, and so I kind of took that back to my area and started teaching classes throughout New England, and be able to share with other people. So I don't really advertise my classes as being vegan, although they are. Most of the people that come to the classes, either online or in person, are not vegan or vegetarian. They just want to find some healthy meals for their families is all. And so, I like to be able to share, what I've learned over, being vegan and doing a lot of cooking the last 25 years, especially when I first started as a vegan 25 years ago. There really were very few convenience foods available. I didn't have the budget to go to a restaurant anyway, but even if I did, most restaurants didn't really have vegan or vegetarian food. So really I had to make most of it myself and, just kind of stayed in the habit of making most of my food myself. And then, when I went on the Holisticology at Sea cruise, they really talked a lot about not using any oil, salt, and sugar. And so at that point, I got rid of most of the oil that I use. As you can see, I use a little bit, but really very, very little compared to what I used to. And I don't really use sugar. I'm not even sure that I have sugar in my house. I just use dates for things to sweeten it. And then I do use some salt, but certainly I don't really eat a lot of processed foods, and that's where most of the salt is in how most people get salt in their diet. So, I'll add some, here and there to different things, but for the most part, I don't use any oil or sugar, and like to eat as unprocessed as I can.
And I think you've presented at some vegan festivals as well.
Yeah, I teach at I've done different veg fests like New England, Boston, Portland, some of the ones in my area. I've done those. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. And I don't see any other questions that people have. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and hopefully you can join us for Colin's next class.
Yes, thank you so much for having me yet again.
Thank you. Take care, Colin.
All right,
Kitchen looks
you too.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.